Thank you for tuning in to the MMA Podcast 47. It is June 12th, about to be June 13th, 2013, a busy week in MMA, so I'll get straight to it. This past Saturday, we had that UFC on Fuel TV 10 card, Big Nog vs. Verdum, the Tough Brazil 2 finale. We'll touch on that briefly. It wasn't the most in-depth card, but we will get to it. We also have a bunch of news, a bunch of news on the TRT front, a couple fights announced, including one pretty special BJJ rematch. And, of course, this weekend, this Saturday, is UFC 161, Henderson versus Evans. We're going to be breaking that down. We're going to be taking calls. Thanks for tuning in. I'm ready to do this shit.
You're listening to the MMA Podcast with Jake and Chris.
Thanks once again for tuning in. Like I mentioned, this is going to be a show where we're taking a bunch of calls. If you'd like to call in, the phone number is 213-457-3380. That's 213-457-3380, and that was my annoying phone going off. Because, of course, you don't get a single text for 2 hours, but then you get one right as the show starts. You can also Skype us at the MMA Podcast or tweet us at the MMA Podcast if you don't feel like chatting. We'll read your tweet on the air. Of course, visit themmapodcast.com. There's 4 of us on the show right now and more to come if anybody calls in. We got Ramses, we got Yao, we got Ross. But we'll start it off with Ramses. What the fuck is going on? What's the word on the street? We had our biggest show ever last night. We had Marina Shafir and Ronda Rousey on. Enormous amount of people tweeted in questions. An enormous amount of people listened live. And it was probably our funnest show yet. Marina was one of the cooler chicks I've spoken with, not just on the show, but period. She was really funny, talking about Brian Caraway being a baby back bitch, talking about shitting on Misha Tate's cupcakes. What is the motherfucking word on the street, Ramses? That was some fun ass shit.
Yeah, you got to check out that interview that we did last night. Follow me on Twitter, The Ant Jimmy Show on Twitter. Last night, I get a DM on Twitter from the President of the United States. All right, he's like, "Look, I can't follow you." Yes. Well, depending on who you consider the president. Well, let's just say, for argument's sake, yes, Barack Obama. All right. He DMs me and he's like, "Look, I can't follow you, but I just want you to know that you're the only thing holding this motherfucking country together. So people, you got to follow me on Twitter, The Ant Jimmy Show. Your life will be changed. It is the word on the street."
That is the word on the street. Follow him at The Ant Jimmy Show. We also have Yao the Truth, up-and-coming amateur fighter. We're going to check in with him on Yao's training log a little bit further into the show. But Yao, what's going on the mean streets of Queens? How is your training going? What's up, brother?
Training is going great. Thanks for asking. We're going to get into it later, but right now I'm just excited to get this thing going.
Fuck yeah. And we got Ross Finkelstein, the word on the street, 5-time defending champion. They call him the best Jew in MMA. What is going on, buddy? Where can we find you on Twitter? And I think this is your first time on the MMA Podcast, so give us a little intro to the man who is Ross Finkelstein.
I am Ross Finkelstein. You can find me on Twitter at Ross Finkelstein. I'm not going to spell it out. I am the MMA Jew, graphic designer, and yeah, this is my MMA Podcast debut.
Hell yeah.
Fuck yeah, Ross Finkelstein. The E is before the L. Follow him on Twitter. And you also, I don't know how deep into the topic we can go, but you are a Photoshop savant. You've made a bunch of posters. You have one you're working on now that's coming down the pipe?
Yeah, I'll be dropping a UFC 162 poster within the next couple of days, so look out for that.
Keep your eye out for that. That is Silva versus Weidman, and it's going to be in Las Vegas, Nevada. Weidman, a lot of people are thinking, is the biggest threat to Anderson Silva besides Chael Sonnen. I really don't know how you could argue with that. But yeah, thanks a bunch of guys for coming on the show. Follow these guys on Twitter. Also, visit MMAmental.com. Ray, Jay, Patrick, they're all doing amazing work. I guess Brooks is over there now as well. They have a ton of interviews every week. It's pretty much just a strictly interview show, and they get everyone from top UFC guys, Bruce Buffer, guys like that, all the way down to local guys. Which really, when it comes down to it, the local guys are where you get the funner interviews because they don't give a shit what they're gonna say. Definitely check out MMA Mental and Jay's Early Stoppage podcast there. And check out MMAVictor.com. All of our radio shows get posted there. Good forum. Good MMA UFC games. Check that shit out. I can't really give you a concrete schedule for this show, but we're doing it tonight, Wednesday night. Next week's also going to be Wednesday night. And then we're probably going to be taking the following week off. And the roundtables every Thursday night. Listen to that. We got some programming news over there as well. Enough with the bullshittery. Let's get to some MMA. I'm tired of talking all this Twitter bullshit, iTunes. What the fuck? UFC on Fuel, TV 10, Big Nog versus Verdum. We will get to the top fights in a little bit. But before we get to those fights, what was your general feeling of the card? I think the Brazilians went 9-0 or 10-0. They did not lose, and there were a very shocking, shockingly high amount of subs. You saw a lot of people getting tapped out this past Saturday. A lot of people thought, maybe some fights were worked. Maybe Joe Silva and the UFC just set it up to where the Brazilians would win. But we'll the order we'll do for every topic. It'll be me, Ramses, Ross, and Yao. And if anyone calls in, they can chime in after Yao. But it'll be me, Ramses, Ross, then Yao for all the topics. So I'll throw it to you, Ramses. What was your favorite moment of UFC on Fuel TV 10?
Let me tell you right now, look, this card, it was a little upsetting for me. Yes, it was entertaining to watch. I had a good time. It was free. I'm glad I didn't pay for this because, to be honest, they went full WWE with this card, all right? The Brazilians always came out on top. The submissions were just piling up, breaking those records. Something was up, people. All right, I don't buy it as always. I am the biggest conspiracy theorist in MMA. I'm guessing, but even the layman, even the people denying everything I'm trying to say, had to have thought, this card was a little funny. Slanted matchmaking or straight up works. What's the difference? You know what I mean? This was a card that was meant to put Brazil over in Brazil. I don't blame them for doing it. But I'm going to fucking call it like I see it. What do you think, Ross?
I thought it was a nice card. I thought the whole show was fun, but like you said, just eight submissions, 10 finishes, Brazilians win everywhere, celebration, crying everywhere. I'm sorry. There's something very, very WWE about that.
Yeah, what was your favorite moment of the entire card? That was the topic until Ramses, as he loves to do, pulled the lever and sent the train going way off course.
Yeah, favorite moment. I gotta say, I did enjoy the Thiago Silva Feijão fight. I liked seeing Feijão gas and then get his head knocked off. That was pretty entertaining.
Yao, what was your favorite moment of the card? And do you agree with Ramses? Was this a WWE level work? Was Vince McMahon up in the nosebleeds, just tapping his hands, laughing evilly, maniacally? That's probably a better word than evilly. I don't even know if that's a fucking word. Yao?
It is.
Yeah, I'll never doubt the word on the street. Ramses knows it. Whatever he says, just got to go with it. But my favorite moment of the night was seeing fellow Black Zillion Thiago Silva knockout Fei Zhao. That was very entertaining, especially because he had to overcome being hurt and then come back later in the round and knock him out. So that was my favorite moment.
When did you start training with the Black Zillions?
Last year.
All right, yeah, you said fellow Black Zillion. I wasn't aware that you trained. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, I'm shocked you haven't mentioned it in over a dozen podcasts. But all right, we will get to Thiago Silva, Rafael Cavalcante, Big Nog versus Verdum. I really don't want to spend any time on the other fights. Ronnie Jason won, Daniel Sarafian won, Eric Silva won, Leonardo Santos won, Tough 2 Brazil, Rafael Asunciao beat Von Lee in the prelims, a bunch of other people winning in the prelims. What was your favorite, like, outside of the Verdum and Silva fights, what was your favorite fight on the card? I've got to sort of get jealous and pick two. The Hani Jason technical sub over Mike Wilkinson. That was a very, very, very nifty triangle he threw up there. And also the Rafael Asunciao fight. Von Lee is not a slouch whatsoever. He's had a shaky UFC start, but Asunciao going in there cinching up the armbar, that was impressive. Ramses, I think we briefly talked about this. I don't know if it was on the podcast or off, but you were saying a lot of positive things about Eric Silva.
Yeah, I was looking forward to Eric Silva's fight. No surprise that he came out with the win. But, the card was totally worth watching because it was free. And my favorite moment, I have to say, it was you stole my thunder on the Hani Jason, dude. That was a good win, submission, which was the only bet I made on this card, Hani Jason by submission. So that paid off. God bless. He just bought me my new sack here. It's probably gonna be here in about 2 hours. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to Hani Jason. They're just gonna keep putting this guy over in Brazil. I doubt he ever fights in the U.S. But yeah, that's about it. That was probably the best win in my opinion. The main event was that was absolute shit. That's the word on the street. What's up, Ross?
My favorite sub of the card was probably the Eric Silva sub. I think the way he jumped on him and he got his back and then he connected with that submission, I thought that was nice and slick. The Big Nog submission, Verdum submission over Big Nog was pretty slick too.
What about you? Yeah, what was your favorite fight on the card, not including the Verdum and Silva victories?
My favorite fight was actually Thiago Silva's fight. It was great seeing him.
Aside from the Verdum and Thiago Silva fight.
Well, it would have to be seeing Eric Silva come back after his loss to John Fitch and just win the way he did. Like his jiu-jitsu, it was very textbook. A lot of that you don't see anymore. So it's kind of cool seeing it.
Hell yeah, and we will move on to the Thiago Silva fight. Thiago Silva defeating Rafael Cavalcante in the first round with 30 seconds to go via KO, and he did it in typical Thiago Silva sportsmanlike fashion as the refs attend to him and the doctors rush to his side. He did a little sleeping motion and then flicked him off and walked back to his corner. Thiago Silva definitely looking impressive with that KO victory. He needed to get back in the win column. He hadn't won in the UFC since that 2009 victory against Keith Jardine. He did beat Brandon Vera and Stanislav Nedkov, but those were turned to no contests after failing drug tests. So it was good for Thiago to get back in the win column. What do you think about the fight, and who do you want to see him fight next? I'd actually love to see him fight. They're saying that people want to see a Silva versus Silva matchup with Thiago and Bigfoot Silva. I want to see a Silva versus Silva matchup. I want to see Thiago and Vanderlei. Vanderlei seems like he wants to stay at 205. I thought we were going to get Vanderlei Sonnen for a while, but now obviously Sonnen is booked to fight Shogun. Vanderlei's looking for a fight. I think this stylistically would be a good fight for both of them. Both of them would be willing to trade, and it would be kind of the old school versus the new school as far as Silva's at 205. I would actually favor Vanderlei in that fight. I think Silva's pretty overrated, but looks like Ross dropped out, so I'll have to re-add him. Ramses, what are your thoughts on the fight, and who's next for Thiago Silva?
Fucking Thiago Silva, man. I'm still not convinced. All right, I know that some of his wins were overturned or whatever, but he's coming off like a streak of losses, if I'm correct. So I don't really fucking believe him yet. This was a pretty interesting fight. I was high out of my mind, so I don't remember too much about it. I only saw it the one fucking time, but I know he did what needed to be done. He looked good. Shit, but I'm not a believer yet, man, Thiago. The only thing I believe in is that, you're like me, man. We're all in the same club here. We all smoke that magic plant, so I'll always give you props. So I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt, but I'm just not on board yet. You know what I'm saying? I'm not committed yet. You got to show that to me in your next fight, and I have no fucking idea who that is going to be against, man. Maybe Yal's got a better idea. Thiago Silva, Cavalcante, what do you think of this goddamn fight?
What's the truth?
The truth is, this was my favorite fight of the night. It was great. Thiago was hurt in the beginning by Fei Zhao. Then he regrouped and came and just finished him. I'd actually have to agree with you, Jake. I'd like to see that Vanderlei matchup. I think it would be an exciting fight, and I think they're in the right position to fight each other.
And he is a fellow Blackzilian like my boy Yao, which I think is formerly, what is there a formal name, like the Hako Hybrid Training Center? Is it Jocko or Hako? Because
Jocko.
my parents live in Costa Rica next to a town spelled the same way, Jaco, and everyone calls it Hako. Who knows?
It's Jocko.
Who the fuck knows? All right, I think we might be having somebody call in. They haven't called in yet, so we'll move on to Big Nog. Oh, wait, sorry. Before we move on to Big Nog versus Verdum, before we move on to the heavies, a heavyweight called out Thiago Silva, Bigfoot Silva. What do you think about the call out? I don't know what the fuck Bigfoot's been smoking. Thiago's not going to move up to heavyweight. He's fought at 205 his entire career, and he hasn't really had issues doing it. And Bigfoot's saying, oh, Thiago is a true heavy, and he should come up. I don't know, I was doing a Hawaiian accent there. But he's got to come up and fight me. Bigfoot's out of his mind to call out a guy at a lighter weight class. I don't know what the beef's over. They used to train together at ATT, but they've both left. What did you think about the bizarre Bigfoot call-out, Ramses?
I don't even fucking believe this, man. There must have been maybe something lost in the translation here. What the fuck? If it's true, though, what the fuck is Bigfoot smoking? There's no way in hell he drops down to 205. That is just, it's physically impossible unless he has some type of super AIDS. I don't see it happening.
Or loses a leg.
Yeah, something. It's more believable that he would have a sex change and become a successful porn actress than he would drop down to 205 and still be able to fight. This is nonsense. Anytime you see a guy calling out somebody that they know they aren't going to fight, that's always a bad sign. Bigfoot's on his way out. His next win, and they're going to fucking kick him to the curb. What's up, Yao?
I honestly think this is sort of, I think they had some history back at the Jocko Hybrid Training Center with the Blackzilians in Florida. I know they used to train together, but Bigfoot left. So I'm guessing it has like something to do with maybe a problem they had there or something. I don't know. But it's weird. It's bizarre. I don't know why Bigfoot is calling him out, like Ramsey said. When you start calling people out that you know you're not going to fight, that presents a problem. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
We will wait and see if anything becomes of it. It probably won't. Speaking of the heavyweights, we had Big Nog fighting Fabricio Verdum. Fabricio Verdum with the second round armbar on Big Nog. What did you, we'll talk about what's next for either guy next. But what did you think of the fight? I loved it. You had a couple guys who are just aces at grappling, and sort of like the Mir fight. Pardon me. Nog knows a lot, but he was not able to come out on top. Ended up getting finished. Ramses, what did you think about Big Nog and Verdum?
Well, shit, man. This one, it was an actual shoot. I thought, on the last episode, I was saying it had a work written all over it. It looked like it was going to be a complete fabrication. But then, closer to the fight, I actually revised my opinion. It looked like a total shoot was going to happen. And, looking at the fight, it was a true fight. I'm not calling any bullshit. Verdum did what he had to do, and obviously, Big Nog ain't got much left. They knew. I mean, I believe it was the bad arm, the one that just got fucked up and reattached or whatever, that was being threatened at the time, right? So of course, that ref jumps in first moment. Like, you could tell they drilled that into his head. They told that ref right away, if it looks like he's gonna fuck up that arm again, you jump in and stop the fight. It's like with amateur MMA fights. They don't let you go full fucking armbar unless the ref isn't paying attention. That's what happened here. They stopped the fight as soon as possible when it was just the writing was on the wall. Big Nog, they gave him a shot, but man, come on, Dave Herman put him over in that last fight. They weren't going to do him any more favors. Why? Because the Nogueira is a big name in Brazil, but he got screwed because guess what? There's two of them. So the UFC still has another one left. You know what I'm saying? It's like when you have twins, man. You're prepared to deal with one of them dying. That's the word on the street. Yeah, what did you think of the main event?
Word on the street?
The main event was kind of sad to watch, honestly. I mean, that first throw that Verdum got on Nogueira, that kind of hurt. I felt bad. It just looked like an old man getting beat up, and that was hard to watch for me. But I got to give it to Verdum.
You cut the heads off of animals, bro. How's that hard to watch?
That was hard to watch. He's like an old man just getting thrown around, beat up. But Verdum, he did what he had to do to win. He submitted him. I don't know who he's going to fight next. It'll probably be a pointless fight. But, that's what I thought of it.
This cocksucker covered in blood saying that fight was hard to watch. You were talking about the old man, talking about Big Nog. A lot of people did share the same sentiments. It was kind of hard to watch. A legend, as he's getting older, he just can't compete with the young lions coming up. If he fights again in the UFC, I'm sure the UFC will give him someone easy, a sacrificial lamb to beat, and then they'll stack him up against a tough guy again, and he'll lose. That's pretty much the career track Nog is going to be on if he doesn't choose to hang up the gloves. The UFC will give him an easy win, then they'll give him a tough fight and he'll lose. Easy win, tough fight, and he'll lose. If you look, I think his last 6 fights have been win-loss, 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 win-loss. We're not gonna see him in the title picture again, unfortunately. Should he hang him up though? I don't know if he should or not. He's not that bad yet, but neither was Chuck when he lost to Rich Franklin. And I think Chuck chose a good time to hang him up, so maybe this is the right time for Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira to hang up the gloves and pursue a career in coaching and everything else. Ramses, before I start waxing poetic about the second greatest heavyweight of all time and Big Nog, what do you think?
Hold on, you're going to have to just sum up that question for me, man. I'm not accusing you of
Should he retire? Should he retire?
Yeah, man, it's all over. It was over when Mir, just removed his arm like that dude from Mortal Kombat, the black dude, Jax, when he rips off people's arms or whatever. That's what happened to Noggin. He should have retired. Miracle of surgery, and this being the year 2013. I guess it was 2012 when he had the surgery done to reattach the limb. That's the only reason he could ever come back. But it was all over, man. Look at that Dave Herman fight. It was a joke. Dave Herman taps, and he's laughing. He's laughing. Big Nog, you're done. See you, man. That's what I think.
Yeah. I don't think he should retire just yet. He can still get a couple more paychecks, and I'm sure he could probably use it. But I don't think he's going to retire until Dana White arranges his retirement. You know, like, that's what's happening now, I guess. People are just waiting for Dana White to tell him to retire. So, no, he could hang around and just get a few more paychecks.
All right, Ross is back on the call. Ross, we're talking about Big Nog versus Verdum. What were your thoughts on the fight and the topic we're talking about now? Should Big Nog hang him up?
Well, first with the fight, the first round was interesting. It looked like Nog was potentially going to knock him out with his hands. I mean, that's how I thought the fight would have gone. I thought if Nog was going to win this fight, it was obviously going to be with his hands. I didn't expect Verdum to submit him, especially submit him in the second and initiate the ground game like that. And he didn't dominate him on the ground, but he definitely outworked him. He got his back. Nog should retire. He should have retired, like Ramsey said, after the Frank Mir fight. Getting his arm snapped like that, it was time. Yeah, he should retire now.
And his opponent, Fabricio Verdum, who is next for the crazy horse, Vi Cavallo. It's a pretty interesting picture now when you look at the top of the heavyweight division. Cain Velasquez and Junior Dos Santos are going to have that trilogy fight. Daniel Cormier, he is going to fight again at 265, but apparently he wants to move down, so I don't know if the UFC would really be willing to have him fight a guy like Overeem or a Verdum who's that deep into the title picture. And Antonio Silva's a long way off after losing. Maybe the winner of either Mir versus Barnett or Overeem versus Brown for him. Neither of those fights happen until August, but we do know that Verdum isn't the most active fighter in the world and probably wouldn't mind taking a little bit of time off. And the winner of Mir and Josh Barnett and Overeem Brown will probably both be, the next guys in line along with Fabricio to challenge the winner of Cain versus JDS 3. Ramses, what are your thoughts on what's next for Fabricio? And then we'll get back in the same order of doing Ramses, Ross, Yao.
Yeah, the only fight that makes sense for Verdum to me, anyway, the only one I'd actually pay money to see is to see these two idiots go at it again. Overeem versus Verdum.
Yeah.
Yep, I want to see that shit again. That's the big money fight. It's an interesting one, and it makes the most sense at this time. Other than that, not really a big Verdum fan yet. Not fully convinced. I actually don't really give that much of a shit, but I would give a shit if he fought Overeem.
His stand-up has come a long way since he fought Overeem last. That was a pathetic showing when he fought him in Strikeforce, literally laying on his back and begging him to come exchange with him. Since then, he's been very impressive, TKOing Mike Russo, who's got an iron chin, outstriking Roy Nelson in a 15-minute fight. He's definitely looked a lot better standing up since that fight, which I believe was like 2 years ago. I think that was summer 2011.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. I just want to see that one again in the UFC environment. What about you? Yeah, what's next for fucking Verdum?
Nah, it's Ross next, son. We're going back. We're going back to the first order. You
forgot about the Jew. All right, here we go.
Don't forget about the Jew. It's a crime.
I apologize.
Yeah. What's next for Verdum? I think Verdum should fight the winner of Overeem Brown. I think the timing works out perfectly. I think they're going to do Cain JDS somewhere in between September and November. I think you can book Overeem Brown, the winner of that fight versus Verdum, somewhere in like November, and the timing will work out perfect, and you have the winners fight each other sometime in the first quarter of 2014.
Yeah, what is the truth? You can just start talking after Ross whenever he's done on future topics.
As far as Verdum and his next opponent, it's stupid because anybody he fights that's in the top 5, he's going to lose to, including Alistair Overeem. He's just going to lose to him again. So I really just don't care who he fights because he's going to lose anyway. So I think he should just fight Stefan Struve. If it was up to me, I'd have him fight Stefan Struve just for a challenge because he's going to lose horribly to anybody in the top 5.
Damn powerful words from Yao the Truth. He did lose to Verdum, but he's 6-1 his last 7. But he really has not fought that top 5 guy. We'll see what happens. I think that wraps up the UFC on Fuel TV 10 recap. So let us get straight into the news. And to lead off the news, a pretty interesting story coming out of California. TRT now prohibited in California. Fighters fighting under the CSAC, the California State Athletic Commission, will not be will not be allowed to use TRT, even in a medical medical setting. This doesn't make any sense. It seems like TRT is starting to get more and more accepted. I mean, think back to when Nate Marquardt was kicked out of the UFC for being on TRT. Now it's something that's brought up literally almost every card. Doesn't make any sense for California to ban TRT, and on top of that, what sort of precedence is this setting? You have places like Brazil who don't give a fuck, and you have people like Vitor who are fighting in Brazil specifically because he can be juiced up on TRT to the gills. Like, is it going to be an issue where we see certain fighters who can't fight in certain states and in certain areas, and guys like Vitor and Dan and Chael Sonnen won't be able to fight in the state of California, and there will be spots, and this fight's in Cali, it's gonna suck. This fight's in Brazil, you're gonna have a lot of knockouts. Like, what precedence is this setting, Ramses?
Yeah, this is actually the first I'm fucking hearing about this, and I haven't quite figured it out yet, but this has bullshit written all over it. Banning TRT in a state where they've pretty much legalized weed. Something's up here. There's some sort of motive. I don't have the word on the street about this yet, but I can tell you right now, man, something stinks. What do you think, Ross?
Well, I did hear about this earlier, and I was shocked to hear about it, but at the same time I wasn't shocked because it is California, and California's just gone down the toilet completely. But I did read that the people who already have exemptions, their exemptions will still hold. So people like Dan Henderson and Chael, they'll still be able to use the TRT. But new people who want to register to use it can't.
Yeah, you're right, Jake. This is just going to cause problems because now you're just going to have fighters that'll only fight in places where they can use TRT. And I think other states will start doing it as well. Other commissions, they're going to start saying, oh, well, we don't want fighters using TRT either. And if that happens, there's going to be a lot of problems. And then they're going to have to start finding places where these people that are on TRT can fight. So hopefully it doesn't turn into something ridiculous, but if it does, oh well.
Oh well, and really quick side note, I hate to mention other sports during the show. We usually just reserve that for the 10 solid seconds of sports segment. But there's a hockey game on NBC going on now. If you're near a television, turn it on. The middle of double overtime, shit's getting crazy. It's been like 4.5 hours. It's still going strong, 3-3. All right. Speaking of TRT, Vitor Belfort coming clean on his TRT use. He had been a little shaky about it at, I think, his right after his knockout against Luke Rockhold. Someone asked him about it, and he suggests that the local Brazilians beat the reporter up. And even more interestingly, a year ago, I remember Vitor Belfort saying that fighters shouldn't be on TRT at all, and he was saying that fighting is turning into Formula One, where the engineers are more responsible for a fighter's, body and skills than the actual fighter is. Like in racing, the driver isn't that much a part of it because you have a bunch of people doing the numbers. And now he's done a total 180, and he's almost Mr. TRT now. And he comes clean on everything, says he, uses a shitload of TRT. What do you think triggered the whole flip-flop as far as him being anti-TRT and now he's Mr. TRT, Ramses? Like, what was the thing that made him turn around and do a 180? Or was he not being genuine when he was saying that he was not for TRT before?
This guy's all fucked up and on drugs. He's crazy, man. And why did he come clean? It's because he's starting to feel the heat. The heat. You know what I'm saying? His own words. It's there's only so much eventually, your own bullshit catches up to you, and you can't even keep track of your own bullshit. So it's best to just be, especially when you're drugged out of your mind, you just gotta be like, fuck it. I'm just gonna start talking about, you get so fucked up, you actually come to the honest route just because of the drugs, because there's nowhere else to go. He was backed into a corner. It's time to come clean. And honestly, the UFC probably put the squeeze on his ass. Ross?
He is a phony. Vitor is a complete phony. We're talking about a guy who, yes, 2 years ago, before the Anderson fight, he was all against TRT and all that crap. Yet this is a guy who's tested positive before in 2006 for steroids. So there's a red flag right there. When a guy gets front kicked in the face and decides all of a sudden I need new medicine and all of a sudden becomes this big super Hulk freak, there's a red flag there. So he pretty much was pressured by the UFC to come clean about his TRT use because I believe it was Front Row Brian who leaked pretty much that Vitor was a little jacked up on his TRT.
I really don't know why he came around and then started using the TRT after he bashed it. But it doesn't matter because he's not doing anything illegal. Yeah, people are bashing him, telling him, hey, you got to tell us why and stuff, why he's so jacked up. But it's fine. He's not doing anything illegal. He's just fighting, supporting his family, and he keeps winning. That's what's important.
He does keep on winning. He's looked very, very, very hot. I don't think many people really had him over Luke, or at least it was 50-50. He looked impressive against John Jones. And yeah, we'll see how this second coming of Vitor will shape out. He does have the word Jesus on his pants every fight, so if anyone's got a second coming up his sleeve, it's Vitor. Moving on to getting the clowns out. The UFC got the clown out when they released Rampage. He's now in Bellator and TNA Wrestling. And Page has been on an anti-UFC diatribe. Even before he got cut, he's continuing it today, saying that the last straw was Dana criticizing his weight cut. I don't have the article right in front of me. I forget which fight it was. It may have been the Bader fight. But Dana White criticized his weight. Yeah, because I think Page weighed in at like 211. Yeah, he weighed in 6 pounds over, unmotivated. He said the last straw was Dana White criticizing his weight. And my question to you, does a fighter have a right to be offended when somebody criticizes their weight and they don't make the weight? I mean, if Page made weight and Dana said he still looked fat, that would be, I would be like, all right, I guess I can see why Page would kind of be pissed off about that. But he missed weight. What right does he have to be mad, Ramses?
Yeah, this was total bullshit. Let me tell you something, man. This is a true fucking story. It happened yesterday. I'm walking out of my condo, just going to my car, and I see this fucking black van. I've never seen it before, just in the parking lot. I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm like, it has a red stripe going across it, windows all tinted black, and I'm like, what is that? Is that the A-Team van? So I walk up to it, try to look through the windows. It's all tinted. I'm like, fuck it, I'll just knock. I knock on the window. I hear some rustling. And Rampage opens that van door, and he's like, what's up, man? He was just waking up. I'm looking around. There's blankets, bottles of water, empty ramen noodle cups in the van. I'm like, Rampage, what are you doing? And he's like, man, it's hard times. Look, people, this fucking guy. Sorry. Choking on my own bullshit here. This fucking guy's got nothing left, all right? He can't bitch about Dana White criticizing him for missing his weight. He signed a fucking contract to compete at a certain weight class, all right? He has to make weight. And this is like the most... this is just the problem with Rampage, man. He's complaining about shit that is his own fault and trying to put it off on other people. That's not what a fighter does, all right? That's not... He's looking, like Rocky Balboa said, he's looking for somebody to blame, you know? But that's not how winning is done. No way. You gotta do what you gotta do to be where you want to be, to sum it all up. Rampage, you're a bum, but, you know, he'll probably come knock on my fucking door here in a second, just wanting to puff a weed or something, maybe crash on the couch. I'll probably let him. It's Rampage. I love him to death still. Ross, what do you think?
Over the weight cut thing, look, sure, he was injured. He had the surgery, the double knee surgery. But at the end of the day, you sign a contract. You have to make that weight. You agreed to do that, and that's your obligation. And if you don't live up to it, of course you deserve to be criticized. The fact that he's got problems with Dana and he leaves the UFC, whatever. He's going to Bellator, whatever. He'll do fine in Bellator. I mean, he's probably the best light heavyweight they've got, even still above King Mo, I believe. But the whole TNA thing, I don't think he's suited for that either. But yeah, I wouldn't call Rampage a bum. I still believe Rampage is one of the best light heavyweights in the world, but lately he's been a bum.
You know, Rampage, his weight cut thing back in February, I think 2012 or something like that. He's a professional athlete, and he signed that contract to compete at 205 pounds. He missed the weight, so Dana White criticized him, which is fine. But I guess his problem is, if you look at lower fighters, like on the prelims or something, they miss weight. Dana's just like, all right, whatever. But when you're a household name and you're at the level, and you're at a high level like Rampage, then of course it's gonna be even bigger, because you're at like a huge superstar. So to have you miss weight is bigger than someone on the prelims that misses weight. So Rampage, I think Chael even said it before, that Rampage likes to be the victim. That puts him in the right mindset for a fight. So I guess that's just him playing that card. But yeah, that's my take.
That's his take. Quit being the victim, Rampage. And we've got the segues popping tonight. We're talking about overweight, missing weight, weighing over. What better segue to Roy Nelson? And he's also, like Paige, been somewhat of a pain in the back for Dana White. His contract with the UFC, it's set to expire this Saturday after UFC 161. Obviously, there's a little bit of bad blood with Roy Nelson and Dana White. You can't really say a lot of bad blood, because Dana has really had some blood feuds with a lot of fighters, but they seem to piss each other off a bit. Nelson, his contract in the UFC is done after this. He has said that the UFC will not give him a title shot. Dana White has called him stupid, I think, a couple dozen times. Will he still be around after this fight? I say that all signs on paper point to no, but there's really no other place for Roy to go as far as him really being a champion. I don't think he wants to go to Bellator, the World Series of Fighting, and if he does, he won't come back. But Dana White realizes that he has a lot of value for the UFC. There's a large demographic of people that love it when, big big country runs out and starts rubbing his belly. It's a big show. But Ramses, do you think Roy Nelson will still be around after his contract expires this Saturday at UFC 161, where he faces Stipe Miocic?
They're looking for the first fucking excuse they can get to fucking cut this guy, alright? He's done. I think probably win or lose, this is his last fight in the UFC. I'm going to call it right now. He's got a bunch of problems, but mainly, one, he's fat, and number two, Dana doesn't like him. So that's it. And honestly, I have to say he probably is stupid. Because Jesus, you don't piss off the boss. And this job, like, this is like a dream job for him, and he's still fucking it up. He fucked up. It's all over for Roy, in my opinion. Unless he, like, just dominates in some sort of, like a standing ovation fashion. That's his only chance. He's got to put on, like, the best show he's ever had, or, yeah, this is it for him. Ross?
Roy Nelson on Saturday night is going to walk out to that octagon, throw that overhand right, drop Stipe Miocic. He's going to finish him. He's going to grab that microphone. He's going to trash Zuffa in the UFC. He's going to walk out of there, and he's going to go straight to Bellator like a G.
Hey, and we just had a caller ring in, Alan. I think, Alan, if you could mute up your mic really quick, and we'll get to you after Yao breaks down whether or not he thinks Roy Nelson's going to stick around after UFC 161.
I don't know. It all depends on how his fight goes on Saturday. I'm not going to make any predictions, but it all depends on his fight on Saturday. If he gets, like, completely dominated, I guess he'd be cut or something. Well, not cut, but they wouldn't renew his contract. But if he wins, there's no doubt in my mind that they'll re-sign him, you know? I mean, he's a household name too. So there's no doubt if he wins impressively that they'll re-sign him. Now, will he accept? That's another story.
For sure. And Ross, really quick, wanted to add another thing to his point, and we'll get to Alan.
Yeah, Roy Nelson's managed by Mike Kogan, and Mike Kogan is pretty much a front office Bellator employee. I mean, he's the manager of King Mo. He got King Mo that, if you want to call it, sweet deal with Bellator and TNA and Spike. Roy Nelson's as good as gone. Win or lose. If he loses, well, it's going to be an easy decision for Zuffa. They don't even need to offer him a new contract. If he wins, I don't think they're really going to try hard to pick him back up, because at the end of the day, he's lost to all the top level competition when you really think about it, and he's just not worth it.
For sure. And Kogan is the guy that Nate Diaz recently signed with, correct?
I do believe so, yeah.
He's making a lot of news and moves. All right, Alan, thank you so much for calling in. Sorry to cut you off there, but you were getting a little bit of background noise in. Thanks a bunch for muting in between when you talk. So first off, Alan, how is shit going down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the hard life of a police officer? And second, Roy Nelson, his contract expires this Saturday after UFC 161. You think the UFC is going to keep him around?
I don't know. It just depends. I really think that they would, try to hold on to him just because of, his name and everything. And, he still offers up a lot of different variables as far as like opponents that they can match him up with and make, pretty decent, co-main events for, lesser cards. But like somebody else was saying, I don't see him getting another title shot just because of who he's lost to and who's on top right now. I don't see an opportunity unless like three different, unless you had like Verdum and Santo, JDS, a couple of different top guys like go down to injury. I don't see him ever getting a title shot back, even if, he knocks out the rest of the division. So I don't know. I think he's got the same chance of leaving or going, whether or not he wins or loses. It just depends on what kind of deal the Bellator is offering him.
And how is shit going down in Baton Rouge, friend?
It's all right. I just made a little trip to New Orleans to go pick up my little brother. He just flew back in from Maryland, so I'm still in the car on the way home.
Oh, nice. You drive the personal car or the police cruiser?
Yeah, I drive my personal car for stuff like that. And I'll tweet a pic of my personal car because you wouldn't guess what I drive.
I guess you drive a 2007 Ford F-150.
You got the year right, but you're totally off on the make and model.
Was it a Peugeot?
No, you crossed the Atlantic, so you're getting close, but still not far enough.
VW Bug.
No, you're gonna have to go all the way to the other side of the continent.
What? Just tell me.
It's a Hyundai. It's a Hyundai Elantra.
It's a Honda.
Exactly.
That's really funny. I'm actually in the market of buying a 06 or 07 Honda Civic now. What kind of Honda are you driving around?
I just have a 4-door FA1. Just
Nice.
It's all right style. Like it, I'll tweet a pic of it, but definitely if you're going to get a 2007 or 2006, do not get a SI that hasn't had the third gear recall changed on it.
You heard it here first, cocksuckers. Don't get whatever the fuck he just said. We do have a few more topics to break down, but it's that time of the show where our resident amateur MMA fighter from Queens, New York, walks us through his training log, tells us what he's been doing. We haven't checked in with him for a few weeks, so he's probably got a little bit to tell us. You're fighting in July, correct?
Yes, the Grapplers tournament.
July coming around the corner. So he's prepping, ladies and gentlemen, and this is Yao's training log.
What's up, people? I'm Yao. This is my training log. Basically, I'll just be breaking down what I've been doing for the past couple of weeks training for my tournament, which is July 20th in New Jersey, I think Morristown. 2 weeks ago, I started training twice a day, 5 times a week. Training in the morning and then training in the evening until nighttime. I've been tired, sore. It's the first time I'm ever training like this. It's just a jiu-jitsu tournament, but I'm treating it and training for it as if it were a fight. It's gonna be in New Jersey, like I said, and I'm gonna be competing at 149 pounds. Right now I'm 159, 160. So I'll have a minor weight cut. Nothing.
He's fighting at Edgar weight, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, my favorite fighter. Hopefully he's there in New Jersey watching. It's one of the biggest tournaments in New Jersey, and I can't wait for it.
Hell yeah, that was Yao's training log. He's doing 2-a-days. Shit's getting intense. He has a month left of training, and it'll definitely be exciting checking in as that Grappler's Quest tournament gets closer and closer. Yao, he's going to get the title one day, and speaking of the title, Alexander Gustafsson wants that title just as much, saying that he's waiting for that contract to come in the fax machine so he can sign it and fight John Jones. He's coming off that win against Shogun, who I don't know if anyone really had him in the top 5 of the 205-pound class when he fought him. So, I mean, yeah, Lyoto are probably the two guys in front of the title shot line now. But does he have the right to expect a title shot, Ramses?
Jesus Christ. Gustafsson, man, I'm not a big fan, dude. And I gotta just be honest. Part of it is he doesn't speak good English. I don't remember any highlight finishes from him. This guy means nothing to me. All right, I don't care what he's waiting for. He needs to keep fighting and put his name out there. He can't just wait for Jones. That's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard of. He's just gonna be another throwaway. They're just gonna pay him to go away. They're gonna pay him to work that fight. He's got to build up his name more. Nobody cares about Gustafsson except when you have John Jones in the same sentence. That's the only time he becomes interesting, and that's not a good sign. I don't believe in this kid yet. Whatever, feed him to the wolf. Whatever. What do you think, Ross?
I think Gustafsson deserves the next shot. I mean, he is the last man standing. There really is no one else at 205 right now who could accept the fight. I mean, you got Rashad and Dan Henderson fighting on Saturday. You've got Little Nog, who's just pussying out of everything. Shogun's not in line for a title shot. Chael still has to work his way back up. He'll do it quick, though. And Machida accepted another fight. Gustafsson does kind of deserve it. He beat Shogun, and he beat Thiago Silva before that, which wasn't as impressive. But the fight with Shogun was a so-called number one contenders fight, so I guess he is the number one contender, even though there's like 7 of them at 205.
Yeah. And Alan, you can hop in and say your thoughts on the matter when Yao wraps up.
Listen, I know everyone listening and you guys on the podcast have seen the EA Sports, the new UFC game. If you look at that trailer, they're showing John Jones versus Alexander Gustafsson fighting each other in the game. When that demo drops and they start showing more trailers and everything, they're still going to have John Jones fighting Alexander Gustafsson. There's no way this fight doesn't happen. They're already promoting it in video games that aren't even out yet. So this fight's going to happen. I don't know who's going to win, but it is going to happen, and I can't wait to see it.
Go for it.
Are you there, Alan?
Yeah, whenever I saw that promo, that was the exact same thing that I was thinking. But the thing that I took away was that Alexander Gustafsson got his ass beat in the trailer. I mean, it was a one-sided beatdown. It wasn't like back and forth like the other. I don't remember who else was fighting in the trailer, but it definitely was one-sided, and Gustafsson was getting hammered. I'd like to see it. Like you said, there's nobody else up there for him to fight. Jesus Christ, if Phil Davis beats Machida, then I guess we'll have to give Mr. Wonderful Arsenio Hall a shot at the title. But, that'll be the day. But there's really nobody else, nobody else marketable that doesn't have a fight or is in the top tier of the division that, can match up to John. So I'd just kind of like to see John fight somebody his size for a change, too.
Yeah, and Ross actually just let us know in the Skype chat that tonight John Jones actually announced on his Twitter that his next fight will be Alex Gustafsson. That stuff about the EA trailer is actually really interesting. I saw it but didn't notice that. I probably saw it and didn't think of it. But that is really true. If Zuffa's putting out Jones Gustafsson in the demo, it'll probably happen. Jones is tweeting out. So we will see. I guess as far as the time goes on when they will fight, that kind of goes on Jones' toe as far as how quick that'll heal. We will move on talking about champions. A former champion, Uriah Faber. He's going to be fighting Yuri Alcantara. And he had some controversial comments. I think Faber is currently ranked 3rd in the division, and Alcantara is ranked 13th. Faber coming off wins against Scott Jorgensen and Ivan Menjivar. And Faber will be fighting Yuri at that UFC on Fox Sports 1 card, which I believe is being headlined by Shogun and Sonnen. Yuri is coming off a win against Alarde Santos, and I think most of the UFC crowd seeing this thought that it was a mismatch and Faber probably was the better fighter. But for Faber, after the fight's been made, saying he has nothing to gain, all this shit on Yuri, it really makes you scratch your head. It makes sense for Faber to say this before the fight, not after, and it's going to do nothing but fire Yuri up. And honestly, it makes me, the casual fan, root for Yuri over Faber, because he's saying that he has nothing to gain out of this fight, like he's obviously going to win it. Is it smart to say something like this? And Alan, we'll keep the same order, so you'll chime in last after Yao.
Yeah, listen, people. Uriah Faber, it's no secret I'm done with him. The one thing I can't figure out is why they why they didn't give him another title shot right away. Because that's just odd. Maybe even the UFC is starting to realize that this guy just ain't going to ever pull it off. I don't know. I don't care about this fight. I really don't have much else to say about it. Uriah Faber, the California Kid, I'm sorry, man. I'm sure you're a great guy and whatever, but it's time to go away. You got glass hands. Ross?
Faber needs to be careful because this is an everything to lose, nothing to gain fight, like he says it is. And those are the most dangerous fights. If you look at the Bigfoot Alistair Overeem fight earlier this year, there was really nothing to gain there. I mean, he had the title shot on the line there, but there was nothing to gain there for Overeem. A win over Bigfoot didn't really mean much.
Little Nog Rashad on the same card.
Exactly. So it is a tough fight for him. Yuri Alcantara looks very good at 135. He looked great at 145. This is a guy who has a knockout victory over Ricardo Lamas, who everybody knows is top 3, top 4, top 5 145ers in the world right now. So this is a tough fight for Faber.
Yeah, I gotta agree with Ross. Actually, that was a great. I don't even know what to call it, but yeah, Uriah Faber. He can't afford to take this fight lightly, but I do think he'll beat this guy. I think he'll just finish him in the first. I think he'll run right through him, and after that, they'll have to give him, if not a top 3 guy, which he is already, then a title shot.
You with us, Alan?
I don't know if any. Yeah, I'm here. I don't know if any of y'all have watched Yuri's fights, but I definitely do not see Faber running through him. Faber's definitely got the experience advantage to his side, but the one thing that Faber normally has is his wrestling against and being the stronger guy against other fighters. And Alcantara, I'm not saying he's a great wrestler, but he's very strong, especially for his size. Fighting at 135, he was really strong fighting at 145. So I definitely think Faber's got a serious experience advantage and probably in the wrestling, but Alcantara, he's got some deadly strikes and he's got a really good ground game, and there is nothing for Faber to gain except for, like you said, on UFC tonight, another W. But if Alcantara pulls it off, I mean it could mean the world for him. It could vault him up to possibly maybe winning 1 or 2 more fights and getting a title shot.
Did you just crack open a beer over there?
No, actually it's a Monster. The Ultra Zero Energy.
Man, you're a cop. You're supposed to be drinking and driving. You disappoint me. Grab a Four Loko or something and hit the fucking road. We have one more topic before we get to the 10 solid seconds of sports, which this Blackhawks Bruins game is about to go into triple overtime. Fucking insane if you're not watching it already on NBC. We actually have someone. Let's see if they'll add in to the call. The original co-host of the show, Chris Lowenstein. We'll see if he pops on. But a topic I was actually speaking with Chris earlier today about, Eddie Bravo and Royler Gracie 2. It is on, ladies and gentlemen, at Metamoris 3 later this year. I don't know if a date has been set yet, but we're going to see the rematch, a decade in the making, if not more. I'm not sure exactly what year the first fight went down in, but Eddie Bravo, a huge underdog. Everyone thought he got lucky when he tapped out Royler Gracie. Even Gracie says that Bravo got kind of lucky and it was a fluke. And we're finally going to see the rematch. Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. What are your early thoughts and how pumped are you about this, Ramses?
This is going to be the only Jiu-Jitsu match, like full contact MMA match, that I have ever given a shit about. I am going to watch this wherever the fuck it's available. If I got to pay money, I'm going to pay to see this fucking fight. This is how you do it, ladies and gentlemen. We want to see what's going to happen. We want to see whether or not we basically, this is going to determine who's full of shit. Was it Bravo or is it Gracie? I'm fucking loving it, man. Personally, I'm backing Bravo, but there's a chance he might smoke a little too much weed and overthink this shit. But hopefully that won't be the case. What do you think, Ross?
I'm looking forward to this. I don't know if we were live last night when we were talking about it, but I did state that I think Eddie Bravo will win the rematch, and I got bashed for it, and I still stick by that sentiment. I think Eddie Bravo has adapted his jiu-jitsu. He's changed his jiu-jitsu so much, and he's come up with all these crazy moves, and he's got his own system now that I think he's going to fool Hoyler somewhere and catch him in some sort of submission or win on points, something.
Yeah, and he does have a slight age advantage, being 43 under Hoyler's 47. Yao?
To be honest, I don't even care about these jiu-jitsu matches.
Boo!
The only jiu-jitsu guy I care about is Renato Laranja.
Valid.
That's it.
Valid.
Well, he does train under Mr. Eddie Bravo. Alan, what are your thoughts on the rematch of Hoyler versus Eddie? And then after Alan, we actually had two people join in the call who I will introduce, and we'll ask about Bravo Gracie too. Alan? Alan,
If
there
Joe
he
Rogan,
is.
if Joe Rogan goes
Mr. Late Delay. What up, Alan?
yeah, I can't help it. It's my goddamn iPhone. If Joe Rogan likes Eddie Bravo, I'm going with Eddie Bravo. I think just for the fact that he's 43 years old and Euler is 47, peaking on 50. That's kind of when you start to lose your man strength and technique. Who knows with all the techniques that he's developed over the last 10 years or whatever, his own little system. But I'm just going to go with Eddie Bravo.
And ladies, I haven't lost my man strength either. You can follow me on Twitter, the MMA Podcast, or Lou Lemonschultz. My bird keeps on going and going. In the background, you can hear the original co-host of the MMA Podcast. I'm glad he decided to join us, Mr. Chris Lowe. We were talking about it before. You and me both had Eddie on this same show, I think probably last August. What are your thoughts on the rematch? 10th Planet versus Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, Hoyler versus Bravo 2.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. I'll start off with saying that I think Metamorphosis, or however the fuck you pronounce that.
Metamorphosis.
Metamorphoses. Porra. I think it's going to do... It's going to do for MMA what the Fertitas did for the UFC, and that actually is a quote on Twitter from Eddie Bravo himself. I think he's spot on the money.
You mean for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Yes. Well, for grappling. For grappling competition, exactly. Yeah, I think that this is the event to finally, hopefully, break into the mainstream. As far as these guys actually competing, I got to go with a guy that I've spoken with, and like Ross brought up in such a salient point, he has evolved very much. Joe Rogan recently on a podcast said that Eddie is he's on a whole nother level. And what have we seen from Hoyler? I got to go with a guy that I've spoken to in real life on the phone than some Brazilian who grew up playing with sticks in the mud.
Hey, yo. And we do have another caller. I think I recognize the number, and I think it is the MMA Mogul. What is going on, and what do you think of this rematch?
Yo, what's up, man? Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Gracie, man. I disagree with Chris. I think that he's definitely been more active competitive wise, like he's been competing more. I mean, Eddie might be training every day, and I like Eddie, but I just think that Gracie takes it.
Gracie's last 3 fights were all losses. As far as MMA goes, as far as jiu-jitsu goes, I don't know if he's won any. I know he won golds in the Abu Dhabi and back in 2001. But both guys, their life is obviously Brazilian jiu-jitsu, so this is going to be a fucking hell of a rematch. And that actually brings us to the 10 solid seconds of sports, where I talk all things not MMA, but I keep it to 10 fucking seconds. Here we go. The Spurs go up on the Heat 2-1 in San Antonio as the Heat take a deep breath. Chicago and Boston take it to multiple overtimes in Game 1. We're in triple overtime right now on NBC. Tune in. Baseball in full swings. Who the fuck cares? Tebow to New England as ESPN collectively comes in their pants. There we go. Ectoplasm everywhere. But seriously, turn to NB fucking C. Triple overtime. And if you didn't see the end of the second overtime, that shit was a work going off the post with 5 seconds or 11 seconds, whatever the fuck it was. Ross making a point in the Skype chat. That shit is a work. Were you about to say something, Ross?
Oh no, I'm good.
Oh. All right, well yeah, tune in to that fucking hockey game if you haven't already. I'll shut the fuck up about it. Johnny Hendricks and the order will do for every topic because we have a couple callers calling in. It's going to be me, Ramses, Ross, Yao, Alan, Chris, MMA Mogul. You don't need to wait for me to bridge it over. Just whenever the person before you is done talking, you can go ahead and start. That's me, Ramses, Ross, Yao, Alan, Chris, and Mogul. We got a full fucking docket of callers. Johnny Hendricks, he's saying that his H-bomb is better than Dan, Hendo, Henderson's. Do you agree? Who has the better H-bomb? I say Johnny Hendricks. I mean, yeah, Dan is older and his is more legendary, but Johnny put Fitch out in less than a minute. He put Cameron out in less than a minute. Those dudes don't go out much less than in less than a fucking minute. I think the real H-bomb lies with Johnny Hendricks. Ramses?
Well, yeah, definitely by default. Look, Dan Henderson fought in the Civil War, people. We tend to forget that. He did a lot for this country, so it's sad to say this, but he's not throwing H-bombs anymore, all right? He's not even throwing Patriot Scud missiles. He's throwing dust now, and it's sad to see. So, yeah, Johnny Hendricks has him beat as far as the knockout department goes. When was the last time Danny fucking knocked anybody out? I don't fucking know. What's up, Ross?
Who wins the H-bomb war? Even though he hasn't knocked many people out lately, I still gotta say Hendo owns the H-bomb. That's his thing. That's his gimmick. That's just gimmick infringement if you give the H-bomb to Johnny Hendricks. Johnny Hendricks has his trademark beard and his trademark left hand, we'll call it.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair to compare their H-bombs, if you will, yet. I'd like to see, Dan Henderson is like freaking 45, 40, something ridiculous. But once Johnny Hendricks gets to that age, if he stays around that long, once he retires or whatever, then I think it's fair to compare the H-bombs.
Senior Allen?
I think we could officially start calling Johnny Hendricks' left hand the J-Train. That's what we should call it. He just got fucking run over by the J-Train.
I'm the J-Train. Whoop,
J-Train.
Whoop, whoop. Chris?
I think it's pretty simple to keep it short and sweet. Dan Henderson has knocked fellas out at middleweight, light heavyweight, and Fedor at heavyweight. So his power carries through 3 different divisions. He's knocked out more people, I think. Can't be too sure, but I'd like to say that. And I think Johnny Hendricks is an excellent power puncher at his division, but Dan Henderson definitely has that H-bomb, man. I mean, for the love of God, he coined the phrase.
Yeah, I think Hendricks is smoking crack, dude. There's no way you can compare it. Fucking Dan Henderson knocked out Fedor. The Michael Bisping thing was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. I thought he died, so definitely Hendo.
All right, a little bit of a mixed bag. Some of you think that Hendricks has the harder right hand, or the harder left hand, has the true H-bomb. I just don't want to match them up and say one is better. Hendo's got the right, Hendricks has got the left. There's no need to say. Who
would you rather get hit by is the question.
Well, I would say Hendricks, but that's only because he's a welterweight and Hendo's a 205er. I mean, I would rather get hit by the hardest hitting flyweight to ever fight than the softest heavyweight. But all right, one more topic before we get to fight tips with Ramses, and then to the UFC 161 preview. John Fitch, he's going to be fighting Josh Berkman this Friday, tomorrow, the World Series of Fighting 3. It's his World Series of Fighting debut. It's his first fight since leaving his UFC roots behind. He was in the UFC for a long time. What are your thoughts against the fight against Josh Berkman? I think he finally gets a finish. And will you be watching, Ramses?
I think he wanted us to pass it off to someone else in this current run.
Oh, did he have to go fucking take a piss or something? That son of a bitch. All right, Ross, we'll skip Ramses for now. What are your thoughts on Fitch Berkman, and will you be watching on Friday night?
I'll be watching, but I have absolutely zero interest in this fight. I mean, it's going to be, in my opinion, Fitch's first finish in a billion years. I think he will finish him, submit him, TKO him, something. I think Josh Berkman isn't even in the same league as Fitch. It's such a mismatch. The first fight, you saw what happened. It's not going to be any different.
I'm going to try to watch this fight. I think John Fitch will just outclass him, though. You know, I think he's just on another level, if you will, than Josh. I don't even know his last. Berkman. I'll just call him Berkman. But, yeah, I think he's just going to outclass Berkman.
Yeah, I watched Berkman's last fight, and, you know, he's dangerous standing up, but I don't think John Fitch is going to stand up with him. I think John Fitch is going to take him down, grind him out, and like y'all said, I think he's going to get a rear naked choke in the second or third round.
Oh, man, Johnny Fitch. You know, Joe Rogan talks about the guy saying he's an excellent grinder, and as much of an aspect that grinding is in mixed martial arts, nobody gave a shit about John Fitch when he was in the UFC. Now that he's in the World Series of Fighting, you know, he has his proper place, man. Not too many people are going to have to watch him fight. I really don't give a shit. Berkman wasn't that good years ago. I don't see anything that's changed. John Fitch is still a consensus top 10, you know, welterweight, so I got to go with him.
What up, Mogul?
Yeah, Bergman looked good when he knocked out Aaron Simpson. I think it was his last fight, but John Fitch is on a whole different level. I'm going John Fitch. I think he's going to get the finish. I looked up his, right now it's currently plus 210 that the fight doesn't go over 2.5 rounds. So I would definitely look into betting on that.
Yikes! Yeah, that I could definitely see Fitch pulling off a quick victory there. Probably not for Berkman though. Ramses is absent currently. I'm not sure when he's going to be rolling back, but until he does, we'll do fight tips whenever he gets back. But until he does, let's go ahead and skip ahead to UFC 161. That fight card coming up this Saturday. Hendo versus Evans. It's going to be at the MTS Center in Winnipeg, Canada. We are going to break down all the main card fights individually. But before we do, I'll bring up the 6 prelim fights, and you all tell me which is your favorite of those 6 and why. You got Yves Jabouin versus Dustin Pegg, Mitch Clark and John McGuire, John of One MMA, Ronald Delorme versus Edwin Figueroa, Sean Pearson versus Kenny Robertson at welterweight, Sam Stout and James Krause at lightweight, and you got Jake Shields and Tyron Woodley at welterweight. I think most of us, including myself, will probably go with Jake Shields and Tyron Woodley. This really could go either way. Shields is excellent on the ground, and if he gets the sub, I won't be that shocked. On the other hand, though, I don't think he is going to win. I think Woodley he had some beastly ground and pound against Jay Heron, and I honestly think we see more of the same, and I see a second round TKO for Tyron Woodley. What do you think, Ross? Or Ramses if you're back? All right, I guess Ross.
All right, for me it's a tie. I like the top 2 preliminary fights. I really love the James Krause versus Sam Stout fight. I cannot wait to see that. Krause is on like a 6 or 7. He's on a crazy winning streak right now. He deserves to be in the UFC, and that's going to be fireworks. The main event of the prelims, you could say, Shields Woodley. I like that fight. I think it's a bad matchup for Jake Shields. I think Shields is not as strong as Woodley, and that's going to cost him the entire fight. I think Woodley could knock him out. He's not going to get... He could get submitted, actually, but I see Woodley finishing him. Knockout.
Yeah, I'm most excited for the Jake Shields and Tyrone Woodley fight. This fight, look, Jake Shields is a bum. He lost to GSP. Once you lose to GSP, you become a bum. You just start losing fights. He's going to lose again on Saturday. Tyrone Woodley is going to run through Jake Shields. I'm really excited. I really like Tyrone Woodley, and I can't wait. Alan, what do you think?
Well, after watching Tyrone Woodley's war with Nate Marquardt, I was really impressed. I thought that he kind of got goaded into standing and trading instead of, cutting corners and taking angles. I think that he could have won that fight. But, after his knockout of Jay Heron, I see Jake Shields having nothing for Tyrone Woodley. Woodley can also wrestle a little bit, so, he's not some bum. And, I think Ross said, he's a lot stronger than Jake Shields. So, I got Tyrone Woodley by knockout in the second.
Well, very well spoken, man. And who among us doesn't want to see Jake Shields get the spray tan and goofy ass smile knocked off of his body?
Bury that motherfucker next to his dad.
Yeah. They both deserved it. That's the word on the street. But regardless, I definitely am going with that prelim, man. Jake Shields, he's boring as shit. Tyrone is exciting as shit. Got to go with the exciting guy. Wu-Tang, what's your take?
Dude, I think Jake Shields definitely wins this. I can't believe that he's the underdog. I think he wins by decision, but dude, people are like, Woodley, his only impressive fight was his last fight when he knocked out Jay Haram. Other than that, he hasn't looked that good. I don't see how people really think he's going to beat Shields.
Yeah, Woodley Shields, that kind of turned it into the topic. It could go either way. You look at the betting lines, though. Shields kind of a heavy favorite. Shields, I think, at plus 160. Woodley at minus 175. So, I don't know. It seems like people are leaning toward Woodley, but it definitely could go either way. We will move to the main card, and I don't think actually Ramses is going to be joining us. He had a little bit of bad food. And the Blackhawks have won in triple overtime, if you were wondering, 4-3. We will get to the main card of UFC 161, though. Pat Barry and the ex-NFLer, I believe, Sean Jordan, just about even in Vegas. It's a heads-up fight. I think most people are leaning toward Pat Barry, though. Barry with that heavy kickboxing power. What are your thoughts on Barry versus Jordan, Ross?
It's I don't know about this fight. It's not interesting. Pat Barry hasn't won 2 straight, and I love Pat Barry. I'm a big Pat Barry fan, but he hasn't won 2 straight. I think Sean Jordan's kind of a bum. He looked pretty good after getting his ass beat for 1 round against Mike Russo, come back and finish him like that in the second. That was pretty impressive, but he's fast for a big dude. He could win this fight by just wrestling him, but I'm going to go with Pat Barry by knockout.
I got to agree with Ross. I'm going with Pat Barry. I think he's going to knock out... damn, I do not even know this man's name.
Sean Jordan. Greg Jackson fight. Yeah, I want him to lose. He trains out of Albuquerque with Greg Jackson. So I want him to lose. And I'm a fan of Pat Barry, so it works out. What do you think, Alan?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with the guy that was born in Louisiana versus the guy who played football for Louisiana. Sean Jordan. Yeah, Sean Jordan, he was a LSU Tiger, won a championship here, was our fullback. But I'm going to have to go with Pat Barry, the Louisiana native. I really want to see Pat win. I don't think that Pat Barry knocks him out because Sean Jordan's got a really, really tough chin. But Sean Jordan, whenever he gets beat mentally, he kind of like shuts down. And, up until that last fight, he's been boring as shit. So I'd rather see Pat Barry win, and I think he has a brighter future anyway.
Alan, that's a great point about being beat mentally. We've kind of seen Pat Barry there a few times, if you guys can remember, against LeVar Johnson. He was winning handily. Then just a little mental lapse and a couple strong punches. He lost his will. It's happened against Tim Hague and a couple other dudes. So I think that both guys are kind of fighting with that. And I think the deciding factor in this fight is experience against top level competition and fights that they have in common. I think that they both fought Czech Congo, and Pat Barry put on a hell of a performance before getting hit with that Hail Mary KO. And Sean Jordan kind of got his ass whooped a little bit by Czech Congo. So I got to go with Pat Barry on this one. I think he's faced the better competition. He may not be as good as an athlete as Sean Jordan, but I think he makes up for it with his fight experience.
Yeah, I'm going Pat Barry. If you look at the lines right now, Barry wins by decision is plus 505. Barry wins by submission is plus 1,990. So I would definitely look into that. Sean Jordan's really athletic. I just don't think he's going to be able to beat Pat Barry.
MMA mogul with the fucking looks on the prop bets. That actually sounds like a really good one. All right, we got a women's fight on the card. Alexis Davis, somebody who a lot of people think is going to one day challenge Ronda Rousey, fighting a heavily outmatched, it seems like, Rosie Sexton from the UK. I think Alexis Davis is going to win this one hands down. Sort of like the typical British fighter. She's not going to have an answer for Davis's wrestling. What do you think, Ross?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think Alexis Davis is going to win this fight. I'm trying to think who they could pair the winner of this fight up against. They just booked the Sarah McMahon versus Sarah Kaufman fight, and I really like that fight. Nice striker versus wrestler matchup there.
Do we know when Kat's going to be out until? Is that knee thing like a major 6 to 9 month issue?
It was a complete ACL repair, and she's out until next year, and she's going to face the winner, they already said, of Rousey Tate.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but I don't really think I can't really think of anyone who the winner could face. I mean, the division's so slim right now, so it's really hard to think of names.
Bring in Marina Shafir, Dana White. Yao, what are your thoughts?
I have no thoughts because I'm not a fan of WMMA.
Oh.
Or excuse me.
Go back to the Stone Ages, man.
Pull your nose out of your ass, cocksucker. Alan?
Yeah, Alan got dropped from the call. You want me to wait or take over?
I'll let Yao finish his thought because I kind of cut him off there.
Well, like I said, I have no thought, but yeah, I'm not gonna make any predictions. I don't care about this fight. It means nothing to me. I still wish women weren't even in the UFC, but I am gonna watch it, and yeah, that's it.
Chris?
Jesus Christ, yeah, what the fuck is wrong with you, man? Things change, dude. We got high-level, female mixed martial artists. I'm sure at some point in your gym, you've trained with a couple girls. Maybe at some point in your life, you wrestled around with some. If they got the resolve and the desire to do it, why not let them do it? It's
I've
good
wrestled
change.
around with a few girls.
I know you have. I was
there. Bedroom. Yeah, you were there. You were videotaping.
Joined in sometimes as well, man. Got my fingers wet. But regardless of that, who should the winner face? I mean, I don't know, man. Like there's like Ross brought up, the division is super shallow at this point. Who the fuck knows, man? I say, honestly, bring in Chris Cyborg. Let's do it. It's probably not going to happen, but that's my best bet. If not, bring back Gina Carano. She was fucking gorgeous and could fight her tits off.
I'm Chris Cyborg Santos. That's my Cyborg impression. Mogul?
Yeah, I don't know shit about Rosie Sexton. I've never seen her fight, but Alexis Davis is a beast. I say definitely Alexis Davis, probably by decision.
Davis by decision. Before we get to the main and co-main, we got Ryan Jimmo versus Igor Pokrayak, as Rand likes to call him, Igor Pokerjack. Looking at the odds, Jimmo is heavily favored, and I can't pick against him for that, and for the fact that he came on the show. We actually were thinking about asking if he'd come on this episode, but the man's busy. He's got a fight on Saturday, and he's got a hell of a fist or a hell of a knockout. Knockout range. I'm trying to figure out. He's got a ton of knockout power in both hands, and I think he finishes Poker Jack in the first round. Ross,
He's got a hell of a fist. Wow.
he's got a hell of and I was like, well, a hell of a knockout power doesn't make sense. So a hell of what do I say? A hell of right and left hand.
Yeah, I think Jimmo will win this fight. I thought Jimmo kind of got robbed in his last fight. I thought that fight was a draw. He looked good, but he gassed. He wasn't prepared to go 3 rounds in that fight, 3 hard rounds. I think he's prepared this time. I think Igor Pokrajic is a bum. I think he's got a couple robberies under his belt, and yeah, Jimmo's going to finish him in the first.
Yeah, now this is a fight I'm excited for. I can't wait to see a teammate of the Black Zillions, Ryan Jimmo, knock out Igor Poker Jack, and just reestablish himself in the win column.
Chris?
Well, you know what, man? I got to go for Jimmo. The guy had a great karate career. He's an excellent striker. He's strong. He's pretty big for the weight class. And Pokrajic has definitely fallen from grace recently. He's lost to Bonner, lost to Maldonado, I think he actually won that fight, but Maldonado should have won. He lost to James Tahuna by a 3rd round late TKO. I think that Jimmo is going to want that win. He's going to come back strong, and he's going to showcase his diverse skill set that he's got, man. He's got everything. So I got to go Jimmo.
And Alan is back, so we'll give him his spot in line back between Yao and Chris for the future topics. It'll be Alan and the Mogul. Alan, what are your thoughts on Ryan Jimmo and Igor Pokrajic?
Hey, it's my turn.
Yes.
I'm sorry. After watching Igor's first couple of fights in the UFC over the last couple of years, I really thought he was going to be something special. He's supposed to be trained out of what's his name's camp, the Croatian fucking killer,
Mirko Krokop.
Krokop, yeah. He's like his first couple of fights, he looked really good. Even when he fought Stephan Bonner. But his last 3 fights, ever since Vinny fucking broke his arm or hurt his arm and made him cry like a little bitch, it's like he doesn't want to fight anymore. He lost what's his name, Joey something, his last fight.
Beltran.
Yeah. Beltran, and just ever since that Vinny fight, he just hadn't looked the same. So I see him getting fucking put out. He doesn't have the heart anymore. I don't think he believes that he can beat the really good guys. Is what the issue is.
Mogul.
Yeah, I don't see any way that fucking Poker Jack wins this fight. I say Ryan Jimmo finishes him by knockout, which is currently plus 210. So there's money to be made right there.
Yo, you follow Mogul's advice, you'll have money in the fucking bank. Let's get to the co-main. Roy Nelson, Stipe Miocic. Nelson is the easiest guy to guess what's going to happen in his fights. If he's fighting the top 5 guy, he's going to lose by unanimous judges' nod. He's going to lose 30-27. And when he's not fighting a top 5 guy, he's going to knock him out in the first round with the overhand right. Is Miocic a top 5 guy? No. Roy Nelson's going to knock him out in the first round with an overhand right. Ross, what are your thoughts on the fight?
Like I said before, Roy Nelson will make that walk to the octagon. He will step in there. He will throw that big right hand. Stipe Miocic will drop. He will finish him. And then he will grab that microphone. He will diss the UFC. He will diss Dana White. He will diss Zuffa, Lorenzo Fertitta, Frank Fertitta, Bruce Buffer, whoever. And he will walk straight to Bellator.
Whoa.
Yeah?
Yes, as far as this fight, I'd like to say I do think that Roy Nelson is just going to walk out there and knock out Stipe. But I don't want to make a crazy prediction like that. I do see Stipe taking Roy Nelson down. He's 3 days. No, not 3 days. He's 3 takedowns away from winning this fight. If he can just take Roy Nelson down at the beginning of every single round, he can win this fight.
Roy Nelson is a grappler at heart, just like he said. And I think if Stipe uses his wrestling and takes Roy down, I see Roy fucking submitting him from his back and shocking the world. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I got Roy Nelson by fucking, any type of submission off the ground.
Fat man triangle alert. Fat man triangle alert. Chris?
Yeah, man. Who the hell let Chris Farley into the octagon with the mullet? Straight up. That guy is fat. As far as the fight plays out, I mean, let's be honest here. Jake has this age-old, saying that Roy Nelson beats up everybody that isn't in the top 10. So I don't think anything's going to change. Stipe has a Golden Gloves under his belt. He was a wrestler in high school and I think in college as well. That being said, man, he got TKO'd by Stefan Struve. Roy Nelson put a fucking whooping on Stefan Struve. So I got the fat man putting another beatdown against a non-top 10 opponent.
Yeah, there's no way that fucking Roy Nelson loses this fight. There's no way this fight goes out of the first round. I say the fight's not going to start the first round or the second round, which is plus 105. You could bet the bank on that.
Double your money, bet the fucking bank. What is the line on just a Roy Nelson first round knockout?
By knockout, straight knockout is negative 145, and won't start the second round's plus 105.
Wow, doesn't make any sense. It doesn't seem like, but yeah, take that doesn't start the second round bet. And before yeah.
Can I just say something? If Stipe Miocic is smart, he'll take this fight to the ground. He's seen what happens when you try to just evade the right hand or evade the left hand, whatever. He's seen what happens when you stand with Roy Nelson. If he's smart...
It's not easy to take Roy Nelson down.
If he's smart, if he's smart, he'll take him down, okay?
Check Congo, Matt Mitrione, and Dave Herman all knew what to look out for. Yeah. They all knew to look out for that right hand, and all within the last year, Roy Nelson knocked him out in the first round. Will it be an early first round knockout, a late first round knockout? I think that's all there really is to debate on, because this shit's in the first round in Winnipeg, Canada, ladies and gentlemen, and I wouldn't be surprised if Ross's prediction came true and he just dishes everybody and goes to Bellator to fight Rampage at heavyweight or some stupid shit. All right, we got one more fight to break down, Hendo versus Rashad Evans. But before that, we got my stat of the day that pertains to it. So I will play the music, and we will do this shit. Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Here comes the stat of the day! Rashad Evans really is a takedown machine. After finishing his wrestling career at Michigan State and joining the UFC, Evans has taken down 49 people, first in light heavyweight ranks in the UFC history, dwarfing Tito Ortiz, who's second with 33. Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Stat of the day! Here comes the stat of the day! Big shout out to the Dan Patrick Show and Jamie Josta, Hate Breed. That's a dope ass clip. I try to use it as often as possible. All right, you got Rashad Evans. I just mentioned the takedown machine. Dan Henderson, a Olympic wrestler himself, very skilled. I mean, both of these guys now. Rashad used, not too long ago was a guy we thought of as very green in the sport, but he's fought a lot of guys now, and he's really an experienced fighter. Both of these guys, well-known light heavyweights in the UFC. Rashad coming off against two losses, though. He had that title shot against John Jones and then lost that unanimous nod to Little Nog. Dan is coming off a single loss, a split decision loss to Lyoto Machida. Before that, he had that 4-fight win streak against Renato Sobral, Rafael Cavalcante, Fedor, and Shogun Rua in that amazing fight at UFC 139. I want to bring up a few topics, but the first one I'm bringing up is very simple. What are your thoughts on the fight? Evans versus Hendo. I could see Dan winning the fight via knockout. I mean, that could easily happen, and I definitely will be rooting for Dan. But the way I see it, Evans is quicker, he's younger, he's more athletic, a little more spry, and I think this is going to be a glorified sparring match, and we see Evans outpoint Henderson to a unanimous nod. Ross?
I think this is going to go one of two ways. One way it can go is Dan lands that big right hand and it's over right there. The other way it can go is the way that I believe it will go, and that's Rashad will use his speed, will use his movement, he will shoot in, he will get him down. He's got to do it 3 times and he'll win this fight. I think Rashad can take Dan Henderson down. I don't think Dan Henderson has what it takes to take Rashad down anymore. I think Dan's just steered away too much from his wrestling, and he's gotten so far away from it that it's too late to return.
I have to be honest, this is a scary fight for me. Rashad Evans is one of my favorite fighters. I actually grew up watching him. He's he's my favorite light heavyweight. He is now a veteran. You can call him a veteran now. And as far as the fight, I'm really excited for it, but I am nervous because I really don't want Dan Henderson to punch Rashad in the jaw. I know he can't take it because Machida knocked him out, but everyone brings up the right hand, but they forget about the left hook. Well, I don't know if they forget, but they don't bring it up. He can land that left hook as well, so that's something to look out for.
Will we see a reprisal of the stanky leg? Alan?
Yeah, I think Rashad's going to come in and, try to change things up. I think he finally realized that the patty cake shit that he's done for his last 2 fights definitely didn't work, and it definitely made him look bad. And I think he's going to come out and look for redemption in this fight. I think he's probably training harder than he's ever trained. As far as Henderson goes, I agree. I don't think Dan can take Rashad down. Rashad's a big, strong guy. And I think that if Rashad would have used his wrestling against John Jones, that he probably could have taken John down. But, he was, content with just standing and, pitter-patter, tapping hands and playing with each other. So I see Rashad taking it. It's probably going to be a decision, but who knows? Dan can always land the fucking H-bomb.
Mr. Lowe.
Yeah. Definitely he can, Alan. That H-bomb is always there. I'm going to take a different take. On this fight, you guys brought up tons of great points, but the way that I see this fight is off of their career history and how they perform. When Rashad Evans comes off of a loss, his first time was against Machida, and he had a great run. And then after that, he lost to John Jones. He didn't look good for about 4 out of 5 rounds. And then he had an even worse performance against Little Nog. That can be attributed to his opponent, his training, whatever. But he did not have a good showing in 2 fights back-to-back. Dan Henderson, in his UFC career and his Strikeforce career combined, has actually come back looking great against Anderson Silva. He lost. He came back. He won 2 straight, or actually 3. Sorry about that. 3 straight. And then he lost to Jake Shields in a shitty fight. And then he had the best run of his career, beating Fedor and Shogun. And he's lost to Machida. He might be old, but I think that Dan really bounces back a lot better than Rashad does. Wu-Tang, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I think that Hendo is definitely going to win this fight. I think that Rashad hasn't looked good since he left Jackson's. The Black Zillions is definitely in a good look for him. He's been dealing with a lot of shit, like his divorce. I don't think he's in fighting as much as he was. I think he realizes he's going to retire soon, and I think Henderson's going to get the knockout.
Hendo with the KO, according to the MMA Mogul. And before we wrap up the show, I sort of want to play a little bit of MMA crystal ball here. I want to ask first, what happens for either guy if they lose? If Rashad loses this, that's 3 in a row at 205. Do I think he gets cut? No. But I think he moves down to middleweight, and if Hendo loses, I think he might be out of the game. 2 straight losses to Lyoto and to Rashad. The guy isn't getting any younger. I believe he's 42. It would make sense for him to back out after a couple losses back to back, but it's not going to be looking good for either guy if they lose. And I say whoever loses this fight, this is going to be their last fight at 205 in the UFC. Ross?
I think it really depends on how this fight ends. If someone gets finished, if it goes to a very close decision, I think regardless if Rashad loses in any way, whether he gets knocked out, whether it's a close split decision, I think he's headed down to 185. I do recall reading something or hearing something where he did say that if he lost this fight, he would strongly consider going down to 185. As for Dan's in a rough position. I mean, his last fight, he didn't look too good, but at the same time, I don't know if you could really say lost. I didn't really find a winner in that fight. So it's not like he's looked bad at 205. He's still beating the top-level competition. Beat Shogun in a great fight. I think if he loses, he should retire. I think there's no point in fighting for him if he's not going to fight for the belt, because he's not exactly a guy who's going to sell 800,000 pay-per-views and get that big bonus.
If Rashad loses,
and I write a check for that.
If Rashad loses this fight, I do think he'll drop down to 185. I heard him talking about it before. I'd like to see him at 185, but I do prefer him at 205. Dan Henderson, if he loses this fight, he can probably just move up to heavyweight, get a couple more paychecks, or he can go back to 185. They can both go to 185. I don't know. They have options, though, other than retirement. But one thing I do want to say about this fight, look out for submission attempts from Rashad Evans.
Look out, cocksucker.
It's a bird. It's a plane.
Yeah! Alan, what are your thoughts? What's next for either guy if they do lose this Saturday at UFC 161 in Winnipeg, buy on pay-per-view?
If it's not decisive, if it's like a split decision or something, whoever loses, I don't see them retiring. Rashad said on the Countdown show that he didn't want to move down to 185 unless, he got another win or got another title shot at 205 before he moved down. I think he would move down if he loses, though. I see him trying to get maybe 1 or 2 wins at 185 and then them matching him up with whoever the champion is, giving him a title shot just because he's a draw. And, his body, he's definitely built to, drop down and be 185, or he's thick, but he can make it. So who knows? I don't think Dan retires if he loses. I think he's got a few more fights in him. I think Dan still has the passion of a young man. I don't think he's ready to give it up, even if he loses.
And in the words of Alan Hamilton, Rashad Evans is a thick-ass bitch. That being said, definitely, like you guys brought up, I mean, if Dan Henderson loses, he could hang him up. If he loses by a decision, I think he won't. If he gets finished, he will. And as far as Rashad, I don't think it matters what happens. He could get knocked out, dominated. He always has that one option to move down in weight and go down to middleweight and try and rebuild his career. We've seen tons of fighters in the UFC do that. Giant loss streaks are mitigated by a drop in weight. So Rashad definitely will stay with the UFC. Dan, if he loses by a controversial decision or it's close, then I think he'll stay with it.
Yeah, I'd like to see Rashad go down to 185 regardless, win or lose. He's only 5'11". He shouldn't be at 205. He should drop down to 185, and I think he'd do good there. As far as Henderson, he's on TRT. He ain't going nowhere. He's going to be around for a while. So I think he got at least 2 more years left.
For sure. And then the last topic I'll send it around the round table for before we all give our Twitters and whatnot, and then sign off, and then talk about even more ridiculous bullshit after the call. The same question, but if they win the fight, what's next for Hendo or Evans if they win? I think if Dan wins, the path back to a title shot is going to be a lot shorter. Because he's older and the UFC knows, he's sort of on the fast track for a title because his skills are going to be waning quickly. Also because he should have fought Jones at UFC 151 before he was injured. He didn't really lose to Lyoto in devastating fashion, nor really dominant fashion. It was a split decision loss. So if he beats Rashad, I think Dan's maybe a fight away from a title shot. And he's right up there with Lyoto and Gus, and I guess you have a next tier of guys in Glover and the winner of Little Nog and of Sonnen and Shogun rather. But if either guy wins, what goes down, and Rashad I think would need to fight a couple times. Ross, who what's next for both these guys if they win at UFC 161?
I think whoever wins is just right back up there, right back close to a title shot. 1-2 fights away for Rashad, I think. And I think Dan, if he wins, he's one, maybe even the short notice replacement when Gustafsson pulls out. I think that, otherwise, I think he could fight Glover. The winner, I think if Dan doesn't win the fight, let me reword that. I think the winner should fight Glover. But if Dan wins and Gustafsson pulls out, I think Dan should replace Gustafsson.
Yeah.
I think if Rashad wins, he'd face the winner of Machida and Davis. But it'll be kind of hard because he went to unanimous decision with Phil Davis, and then he got knocked out by Lyoto, but he does want that Lyoto fight. He does want to avenge that loss. So I think he fights the winner of that fight. Dan Henderson, I think he fights the winner of those two. But then again, it's hard because he already fought Lyoto. So I have no idea. But the only person I'm worried about is Rashad Evans.
I don't know. I don't really see much difference in if they win or lose. I don't really have anything to say on that. I think that Dan Henderson is going to stick around, win or lose. I think Dan wants to fight Lyoto again, but I don't think it's a good matchup, and I don't even know what the fuck's going to happen with Lyoto and Arsenio Hall. So whatever. I'm out. I don't have anything to say on this one.
Damn,
dog.
Damn, dude.
Shit.
Ill.
Shit.
Yeah, yet again, I gotta side with the Fink, as much as I fucking hate it every single time. Dan Henderson wins impressively. He gets that title shot. Rashad loses impressively or, non-impressively. He's definitely still in the mix. He's always going to be in the mix. He's had such a good run. So I'd have to say Rashad's probably, if he finishes Henderson, he might get the next shot after Gustafsson. But if he just kind of has a plotting affair, doesn't finish him, then I think he's one fight away.
Yeah, they're not going to give Rashad or Hendo the title shot right off this fight unless it's insanely impressive, which I don't like. Some Pettis kick or some shit. But I think that the winner should fight either. I'd like to see Henderson fight Little Nog. I don't know. I'd like to see that. But either I don't see Rashad winning, so I say Henderson either fight Little Nog or fight who else we got? I'd like to see him fight Glover Teixeira too.
Glover Teixeira, that would be an interesting match too. This is the winner is going to be back in the title picture. The loser is going to have a long road to getting back there. It'll be Evans coming off 3 losses or Dan with 2. It's really shocking. Both of these guys are coming off losses. And you rarely see a couple guys coming off losses fight in the main event of a card, but that's what we're seeing here in Evans versus Hendo. Their names do warrant being the main event, though. Really quick, let's go through everybody and get Twitters and whatnot before we play it out. Ramsey says the Word on the Street podcast. He's on Twitter at the Aunt Jimmy Show. He had to log out mid-show due to a little bit of an upset stomach. The man got some shitty Chinese food. We all know that fucking game. Definitely check him out on Twitter. Look at... I'm not sure where to find it on YouTube. It's just search Word on the Street MMA on YouTube and iTunes, and you should be able to find it. We had a fun interview with Marina Shafir and Ronda Rousey that you got to check out. Ross, where can we find you on the Twitters?
You can find me at Ross Finkelstein, Finkelstein. There, I spelled it out that time. I'm posting lots of UFC posters, lots of official posters, custom posters, and look out for my UFC 162 Silva White
badass posters.
Fuck yeah, they are. Yeah, where can we find your ass? On the Twitters, on the Instagrams?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter or even Instagram at Yao_the truth. That's YAO_the truth.
Chris?
Well, my Twitter is at C. Lowenstein, but you would be mistaken to actually follow me. Don't do that. Instead, follow all these guys. Jake with the MMA podcast, Yao with his training, Alan with his, police officer shenanigans, and Ross doing work with his posters. Follow those guys.
And follow Chris at C. Lowenstein. You got C. Lowenstein, and you got Ross Finkelstein. E before the L if you're trying to follow Ross. Alan, sorry I skipped you. Where can we find your ass?
You can find me on Twitter, because that's the only thing I have. I don't know what the fuck Instagram is. No, I'm joking, I really do, but don't have one. You can follow me, though, at Team Sun and Man, at Westland Eagle AH on Twitter. Follow me. I don't know why you would.
Follow that motherfucker. Give him a follow. And last but certainly not least, Mogul, where do we find you and where do we find your show?
Yeah, you can follow me at Wu-Tang 1990, and you can follow my podcast at the MMA Moguls.
That's a good show.
MMA Moguls, check it out for betting advice. You got a little bit of a preview tonight, got a few tips, but if you really want to go deep, check out the MMA Moguls. Thank you so much for tuning in. And just a quick note to everyone on the call, once I wrap up, I'll play it out with maybe 20-30 seconds of music, and then we'll get to the after show nonsense that we probably should record one day, but really shouldn't. Because I don't think any of us would want that to go out to the internet. But thanks so much for tuning into the MMA Podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with the MMA Roundtable. Myself, Jay, Brooks, Eric, going to be breaking down the card as well. And then again, and Chris will be there as well. And then again, next Wednesday night, time is to be announced. Follow us on Twitter, the MMA Podcast, to figure out when that's going to be. But yeah, the next roundtable tomorrow, it's going to be during the afternoon, 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific, 8:30 if you're in the UK, and then the MMA Podcast again next Wednesday. And don't forget to check out MMA Moguls. Don't forget to check out Ross making dope-ass posters on Twitter. Don't forget to check out Alan. Don't forget to check out Yao, the Mogul with the dope-ass betting advice. Chris, the Word on the Street podcast. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we're going to be doing that late tomorrow night as well. We'll see if Ross can defend his belt for the 6th time. He is the Word on the Street champion. And most of fucking all, thank you so much for tuning in, keeping us going. I really thought we'd get flooded with hateful comments when I went up on the iTunes and the YouTubes, and it's been nothing but positivity. We appreciate the shit out of it, and we appreciate you just listening to it, supporting us. We aren't asking for you to donate. Just tell a friend. If you like MMA, listen to it, tell a friend about it, and we really appreciate the shit out of you listening to it. So until tomorrow's roundtable and next week's MMA Podcast, thanks for listening. Go Blackhawks. We'll see you next week. We see you next week, cocksuckers. We gone.
Kaboom!
Fighting under the same banner. We all got love for this ground game, and that's all that matters. In the balance, in the teachings of the grandmaster. I'm trying to master the system, that's what I'm after. And stay true to the craft, spark dreams.